Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be bringing to you a service that probably a lot of us haven't heard of before, but it sounds very interesting when it comes to therapy. It's simply known as cryotherapy, in which you can use a body cryosauna, and how this has actually helped people alleviate a variety of conditions. We're going to find out what this is all about today as we're joined with our guest, Richard Sprower. Richard, how are you doing today?
Fine, thanks.
Now, what is cryotherapy? That's kind of new. I mean, when I think of cryo, I think of something cold and freezing. Am I kind of on the right track there?
That's what it is, cold
all right.
therapy, basically, and in this case, very, very cold.
Now, how did you get started with this? What's the research behind cryotherapy?
Well, my own research had to do with looking for things for myself, and I was looking around at time. I was researching therapies for pain and also for weight loss, strangely enough. Came across the application of cold for both. Of course, cold, everyone knows, can be used for inflammation, these kind of things, sports injuries and such. But I found that cold, where I had been looking, the person had described for swimmers, for example, extreme amounts of caloric burn because of the temperature gradient between water temperature and their body temperature. So, for example, the Olympic swimmer, he would burn almost 12,000 calories a day. Now,
wow.
We can't normally do that ourselves because water all day, but that showed the differences possible in cold therapy. So I started looking further, and I came across a gentleman, ice baths, and then led me a little bit further to the cryotherapy, and I started looking into that. Quite extensively, I found. About 40 years now, and from where it was originally developed to pretty much Middle Europe picked up on it next because they have a spa culture in effect. They then from there it's pretty much come to the athletic community, and I think the United States parts than anything else, and so it has those benefits as well.
You know, it's pretty interesting. It seems that the United States at times, when it comes to health, is one of those that seem one step behind, for instance, the Europeans. And you see something like this, and you realize, well, 40 years this has been around here, but it's been very effective in how it's been able to help people, as I understand.
It has. It has a number of benefits, and a lot of the research to suit American standards hasn't been done. So we're always a little cautious about those things. But Europe, and especially, like I was saying, Middle Europe, they do have a kind of a wellness culture. And they're willing to try various things, and if it works, that's pretty important. So they often apply these things based on their own experience. In Europe, I've lived there, I practiced there for about 10 years, and they have a different code, legal code. So if in the United States, for example, if it's not against the law, you can do it. In Europe, if it's not written into the law, you can't do it.
Wow.
So a lot of these things, health-wise, they have to go through an approval process with you might have to have a referral from your doctor to go to the spa to use these kind of things, but readily given because they want to find out themselves, and it's part of the research that they do. So, yes, like I said, it's been used for years pretty effectively for a lot of conditions. Originally developed for rheumatoid and osteoarthritis. That they found out many other.
Now, it sounds like something that helps to reduce inflammation. Is that pretty much what the key element of this is?
That was the original idea,
Okay.
and that's the original idea in using it for general inflammation in the body, and more specifically, the periphery. Now, the benefits that they found subsequent to that, chemical benefits, that's why people quite a relaxation. They get a common things that you find that pain itself, the inflammation, it's like using an ice bath. You're going to have an immediate response to it. It's going to reduce the pain. It's just a matter of how long it lasts. So, of course, the athletes love it because ice baths. So, initially, inflammation, and it's been found to have other.
Now, what happens when a person comes to you and they decide to do this? What can the experience be like?
Well, usually the first time they're a little bit apprehensive because it does sound cold. It sounds very scary. But they find quickly that it's actually less painful than an ice bath. It's just different. The effect in the chamber, although it's cold, it's not a wet cold. This is a nitrogen gas swirling around you, and so it makes the temperature of the skin very cold, but the core of the body stays fairly warm. So you're getting a reaction you're looking for the inflammation, but it's not as cold as ice baths. People
Fascinating. So people don't actually feel that they're freezing.
Well, they feel cold, but it's not like they're freezing.
Oh, I see.
It's more like they're standing up on Timberline Lodge with their clothes off for 2 or 3 minutes outside and wondering what they're doing.
So how long do they usually stay in this cryosauna?
2.5 to 3 minutes, and I usually start people at 2.5 minutes just to see how they tolerate it.
Uh-huh.
If toward the end of the session they're doing fairly well.
Oh, I see.
And the people that have been to it before, or the people that are somewhat acclimated, they like their full 3 minutes, especially the athletes.
So now, how often can somebody use this therapy?
It depends on what you're doing. Some of the athletes even will use it at halftime, then after the game. So they're using it twice a day sometimes. I wouldn't recommend that for normal folks. But you could use it for consecutive days if you were trying to do something specific, trying to affect. I have a woman now that uses it almost as a tonic. She comes in once a week just because it makes her feel good. So it depends on what you're up to.
Oh, I can imagine. Now, what are some other conditions you've been able to treat where people thought, well, I'm going to go in this direction, and and it's helped?
I've had a number of responses. I've been with this machine now for 2 years, and there have been many varied responses. One of the things that was kind of unusual to me is that people slept better. I think it may be tension. Because it does provide this may just allow them to relax a little better. People with injuries, last year I had a husband buy a Christmas coupon for his wife, and she used it 3 times, and she came in for her low back. She had previously a calf injury that took a long time to heal. She wasn't happy with it even after it healed. She had to stretch it and relieve it. Third visit, that was gone, and she was completely amazed. She hadn't come in for that at all. So, and that was, it wasn't an old injury per se. It was months old, but it just hadn't healed completely. So she was delighted with that. I've seen those kind of responses. I've seen pain responses. Right now, especially, it's especially popular, like I said. Get the mixed martial arts guys who like to come in. They're strenuous workout. I like to use it that way because they can. Lots of various uses. Knee surgeries. Later, very good knee surgery, good effects, but pain in a particular spot that's continuing. Those kind of things. I haven't had anybody do it immediately after surgery. It's fairly new, and I don't think people. And like I said, the mood response is pretty universal. Feel good. It's invigorating. And last week when we had the cold temperatures, I had a couple. Notice it as much outside because you
What do you think it is that causes people to feel that invigoration that you're talking about after using cryotherapy?
Well, I think it is a flush and a relaxation effect. Okay, so the flush is the constriction of the blood vessels are causing toward the core. So the idea is that in a cold bath, for example, the heart thinks it can keep up. So that's why you can only stay in those baths for a certain length of time. Because in effect, the heart really can't keep up. It tries. So with the cryotherapy, the cold is so quick and so intense that the skin sensory nerves send the message that we're freezing, protect the vital parts. So the blood goes to the core, and the core organs and the internal parts are protected, while the periphery loses blood vessel, or not blood vessel, but it loses carrying capacity because of the constriction. They step out of the chamber, this all floods back, they get a flushing effect, they get an oxygenation effect, peripheral muscles. And I think in our society, we underestimate how much stress the body is under, and most of that stress is carried in the musculature, in the fight or flight. Circumstances, 1,000 years ago, every man for himself, you win or not. Stress is over. Modern culture, the stress never abates. And I think that that's what we notice most of all with everyone feeling the difference in stress level. Because that's universal to almost all of the people, whether they get an absolute relief on their level. So that's what I think it is. Studies will tell us, and who knows what.
Now, I have a question here from one of the listeners, wonders whether or not this could be used for weight loss.
It has been used for weight loss, but it takes a longer regimen because you're burning calories, 500 to 700. I wouldn't use it by itself. I'd use it with exercise, but it can do that. I had a woman in. She's told me twice now that by about the fourth or fifth visit, her clothes fit different. She notices the difference, changed her diet. So yes, it can make those differences. Best benefit if you're actually doing something in addition to that.
Well, sometimes we know Americans like to find the passive way to achieving goals, don't we?
Well, I mean, I've heard that it can burn about 4 kilos 10 visits. It can be used that way. I think it's a pretty expensive way to use a modified program if you use it in addition to the things you're doing.
Such a fascinating thing that we're talking about here today. Cryotherapy is what we're talking about here, in ways that you can actually reduce inflammation and increase greater sense of well-being. Now, is this something that's catching on throughout the United States?
Yeah, more and more. Like I said, primarily with the athletes. A number of the athletic teams have them now. I don't know Nike headquarters, but it's a lot of the teams. Dallas Mavericks, Machine, the San Antonio Spurs, also considered an old team. That one. Dodgers. So it's pretty big in the sports community already. Sports trainers and could be used more effectively that way than it has been. But
now, do you see this particular technology evolving to be able to do more than it does, or is this pretty much it?
What I've found very interesting is that the patients, like I said, they noticed a difference in their stress level. And I think that's where I'm going to put my efforts, because what I've been practicing with a little bit is relaxation with patients who use the machine. Type of focused visualization where they actually will take the relaxation that they feel. That's a problem for the culture in general. A lot of people don't know how to relax anymore. Stresses are so much in our society that you finish your day, you might go to sleep, but you're still not relaxed. You might wake up, you're still not rested. So I found that if I use the combination of machine, and once they've found what it really feels like to have a feeling of wellness and relaxation, I can anchor that feeling and they can recall it when they need to. And that's where I'm putting my focus. The other parts are fantastic. Well, just inflammatory properties, but stress reliever.
Well, it certainly sounds better than the way a lot of people try to relieve stress.
I think so too.
Now, we were talking about injuries earlier. You were talking about, for instance, people who have had knee surgery, and in some cases have actually had, joint replacement, whether, it's with screws, anything like that. So
Yes.
The idea that metal could be in the body, is that going to be a problem for somebody who wants to use this?
No. Metal implants are no problem because the penetration is only skin deep. So even a shin implant with very little tissue over the top of it is not a problem. If you have even a piercing, let's say you have it doesn't even have to be removed because it's not going to cause a problem. Skin won't be cold that long. Now, if you have a chain or something around your neck that can come off the skin, get very cold, and come back on and affect the skin, that's why we ask people to take necklaces. Apart from that, implants are not a problem. In fact, one of the first people I talked with about this, I was just doing research on very wealthy gentleman from Palm Springs who had one in his garage. And he loved it because when he originally bought it, he was going to have both shoulders. He couldn't get them beyond. Patients are going to like it, but you'll no pain, delighted. But he gets to use it anytime he wants in his garage. It's a little different story.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about people who decide to pursue this, and is it covered by insurance at all?
No, I don't think it is yet. I've heard peripherally that somebody has submitted in various places for it, and I don't think they're going to get paid. Usually in these physical therapy codes, certain length of time for treatment. So you get an ice treatment or a cold treatment, it has to have a specific length of time. We're at 3 minutes. Until they catch up in their coding and understanding, I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may be able to submit it to your insurance and squabble with them a bit, but
Mm-hmm. So what does it cost for a treatment, I guess, or a session?
well, single session, normally it's $80, but between now and the first of the year, I thought I would just letting people get over their fear for $44. After that, if they want to continue, packet of 10. After the first year, the price will go back up to normal, and $62 each for a session of 10 visits. Depending on what you're after and what you're up to. You were talking about weight loss. Weight loss is on the higher end of that. That's issues, and for training and this and that, they'll often buy a period of months. Cost effective depending on what you're up to.
Well, very good. Well, Richard, is there a website people can find out more about cryotherapy?
Sure. Our website is www.activecryotherapy.com. Very simple.
ActiveCryotherapy.com is the website, and there seems to be a lot of interest here from our listeners out there, and they can certainly find out more about that. Richard, thank you so much for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thanks very much.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there. You can find out more again by visiting the website ActiveCryotherapy.com to find out more about this. I want to thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.